Alright, we've got another worst case scenarios video. This time, Scarlet Monastery Armory, 1 pull with Herod. So there's these 2 mobs right away when you walk in. It's easy to pull them with your 1 pull, however, it's likely that your carries are going to end up either getting in combat or pulling them. So it's better to just take them out now and move on. We're going in with minimal buffs. I just have a Scroll of Protection on, and Priest from the group has a buff on me. As for my gear, I'm obviously pretty beefy. I got my 5-set tier 2, so you'll notice my radius is a bit bigger than usual, and I do take that into account when I do my pulls. I would be doing things slightly differently and more precise if I didn't have 5-set tier 2. Big difference between Armory and Cath is that the mobs in Cath are all shooting frost bolts at you, so you need to have your frost resistance pretty high. It's not so much the damage of the frost bolts that you're worried about, it's the slow effect. And in Armory, you don't have to worry about that. So you don't really need to resist like you would in Cathedral. However, there are a lot of big differences between Cathedral and Armory, and one of them is that in Cathedral, the gather is pretty lax and you're kind of just watching out for frostbolts. In Armory, it's very tight, very precise, and every global cooldown matters. You don't have all the time in the world, and you don't have the evade spots and the options. Mana in Cathedral is almost infinite. You never really have to worry about it throughout the whole pull. It's your health that you're more worried about in Cathedral and getting one shot. In Armory, your health is a bit more flexible. You're never really ever going to get one shot out of your ice block. However, your mana is the thing that you're worried about, and it depletes, and you could run into mana problems in here. So those are some of the biggest differences between the 2 pulls. Now, later on we go up these stairs, there's a couple of evokers that we want to make sure we blink through. If you end up pulling a bunch of mobs running through, don't stress out. There's these rooms toward the end right here with an evade spot. All you gotta do is jump onto these cannons and then go onto the ledge, and the mobs will eventually just stop attacking you and evade. Through this last hallway here, you can just hug the right, open the door, and then get ready for Herod. So before we pull Herod, we want to make sure we get full mana, and we're going to only be using our ice barrier during this fight to prevent damage, because it's much easier to bandage and heal up rather than using our mana shield and losing all our mana. The mechanics of Herod are important to know. He does a charge at you, which also increases his speed. Then he has a whirlwind effect, which he's immune to all spell damage during. So we try to time our frostbolts to hit him right when that whirlwind is over. It works pretty well that you stand up top, you shoot a couple frostbolts at him, he charges up to you, you jump down, you shoot another frostbolt at him, and you run away and try to avoid some damage, blink away. He'll whirlwind, you get back up to the top, you bandage, you do what you gotta do, and then you nuke him down a bit more. Once he gets a little bit lower, he'll start enraging, which will increase everything he does a bit faster, and then when he gets to about 5-10%, he will start moving incredibly slow, which is the goal. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to kill him, so you'll notice when he gets low, I'll switch off to either wanding or downranking spells, so we don't get a lucky crit and end up killing him. That would suck. So once he's low here, it's easy to just avoid all damage by just juggling him or jumping up and down, where while we bandage back to full, we get our shields back to full with our cooldowns on the shields ready to go, and we're going to evocate, of course. If you have a decent Cath pull and you're not wiping, you're going to hit the lockout anyway, and there's no point during these pulls where you would normally use an evocate unless things go really shitty. So this is a really good opportunity to use evocate in the pull. But yeah, once we get full shields, we're gonna be ready to begin the actual Armory pull, which is exactly the same. We just have to prep a little bit differently. Now, it's nice to have a blink up at the start, and you also get these 4 extra mobs, which is pretty cool. But I obviously don't have my blink up exactly. I end up taking away extra damage than normal. At this point, it's really important that we're cutting our corners super tight and using our arcane explosions at very precise points where we're going to be able to clip these mobs, but also we want them to be on us at certain points so that they're not charging at us from the front. So the gather from this point is super tight. We have to make sure that we're arcane explosioning so that the mobs are being grabbed behind us. We don't want to accidentally pull mobs in front of us. That's just extra damage that's unnecessary that we don't need. Especially since at this point we will now be limited to our shields. We are no longer allowed to use our shields freely. Right at this point here, I'm going to make sure we do a key blink to avoid as much damage as possible, and then we're going to do a jump arcane explosion to utilize our attacking hitbox being where it was when we jumped. We talked about that earlier. And right at this point, at the bottom of the stairs, we were no longer allowed to use any more shields. We refresh it one last time for here, but that's it. We'll have to rely on mana shield to get through from this point forward. Now we're just going to run directly through the center of this haul, and we're going to be making slight adjustments to Arcane Explosion, the proper mob. There's a corridor here on the left. It's super tricky to target and grab counterspell this mob. Counterspell is super long range. We face pull these mobs right here, and another crucial blink right up the stairs. Now, immediately after, we have to fire blast this mob here on the left as well, and then we're just going to continue right. Now, this part looks familiar to Cathedral. Only difference is we're going to be taking some damage from these fire elementals. Don't stress it. It's fire damage, and we don't have a fire ward up. It's unpreventable damage, but it's not much, and it's not worth the mana cost of using a fire ward earlier. So this should look very familiar. We're going to go around this corner right here, go super wide, or basically touching the opposite end of the wall. We're making sure we're blinking slightly inwards in the hallway. We don't want to get jammed up, get a stutter blink. But yeah, you'll see it'll blink right through a lot of these mobs. They don't usually come from the front, but sometimes they do, and in this situation they did. So we had to blink right through them, took a lot of damage. And now you'll see as I slow it down, every single global cooldown is going to matter. So right after this blink, we want to make sure we do Ice Barrier, Mana Shield, Fire Ward as we jump through this archway right here to avoid the most amount of damage, get into the position, and Ice Block. Now, unlike Cath, where you want the full 10 seconds of your Ice Block to gather every single last mob you can, it only takes about 6 seconds for these mobs to gather on you, so feel free to pop early. In fact, I would suggest it, since Horde could potentially reset or regain health if you stay in Ice Block a little too long. So just wait until they all gather up, break out, and then continue with your Frost Nova normal pull. So yeah, obviously we're going to Frost Nova. As you run away, you're going to reapply your Mana Shield. You already have a Fire Ward still up. If you used your Mana Gems wisely, you could actually get 2 off during this pull. Yeah, so you're going to go ahead right into Blizzard. I obviously get a Resist Defender, and you hear the dink sound happen, which means he already used his Shield Bash, which is about a 20-second cooldown, so I would have been safe, but I go ahead and polymorph him anyway. The other mob has no abilities of concern, so you don't have to worry. Now, you normally want to get 2 full Blizzards off on these mobs, but I only get the 1 because I must have misplaced my Blizzard. I obviously have a shitty camera angle. I'm not looking that well. I missed a couple mobs. They run through, and what happens? I get Frost Locked. So I'm going to pause right here because at this point when I Arcane Explosion, I'm just going to show you how a normal clean pull would have been. You're going to be blizzarding on the star in the radius of the blue circle, and the mobs are going to be moving along the red arrows. After they get hit by their last blizzard, they will have 3 seconds before their chill effect wears out. That's your cue to consciously end blizzard and start moving along the green arrow. At this exact moment, instead of Arcane Explosioning, is when you would reapply a Fire Ward for preventing later spellbacking. You would go in between the orange pylons here, and you will wait till the very last second on the mob's chill effect to use your Nova. Right around the area where the little green guy is standing. That's where you want to use your Nova. The key here is to make sure you're hitting every single mob in that huge pack. So there's mobs that are way in the back, and there's mobs that are way in the front. You don't want to get too intimidated by the mobs that are too close to you, because you need to make sure you hit all of the mobs with this Nova, even if it means taking a little bit of damage. After you've successfully landed the Nova, you would just continue on to the other side of the courtyard where you'd stand with the other casters, reapply your Mana Shield just in case a mob or 2 broke through, and continue blizzarding until the mobs were dead. Obviously, we're applying no double shielding into Armory, so as we learned in Cath, you don't want to use both your shields between a blizzard, so you want a blizzard, then 1 shield, blizzard, then another shield. And it's basically the same thing with Horde, because Herod's only a 1-shot, so you only need an Arcane Explosion or a Fire Blast to kill him. So if you're blizzarding and you see Horde come in and he's not spinning, he's priority because he will take down your shields in about 1 second. So when you see him, you cancel blizzard, Fire Blast him, then re-blizzard. Whatever it takes to get him down. He normally shouldn't come in until you have cleaned up most of your pull anyway. But for mine, he comes in pretty early when I am not ready, and I am forced to just Arcane Explosion spam until this pull is done. The merms enrage when they're low and also don't run away when they get low health. They also deal a fuckload of damage after they're enraged. The protectors periodically heal themselves regardless of their health. The evocators are the ones spamming fireball, so you want to try to keep them alive if you can till the end. The soldiers do a disarm, so they're no real threat to you, and the defenders do an interrupt around every 20 seconds. If you watched up until this point, I just want to say thank you for watching. To me, this is one of the most fun solo gameplay experiences you can get from Classic WoW, so I just try to share that with other people.